So I was born in Korea, and our family moved to the United States when I was 3 years old. We lived there, or I lived there for the most of my life, and then about 3.5 years ago, I moved to Korea. First, we moved to Kansas, and then after a couple of years, we moved to Los Angeles. Me growing up, my dad always told us, I don't care if you're speaking English, you have Korean blood running through your veins. You're Korean, And it was Korean pride throughout my whole childhood. Yeah, so we spoke a lot of Korean at home. My mom still doesn't speak English, and she still lives in LA right now. I went to school in Los Angeles, and then when I was in high school, we moved to an area called Cerritos, and I went to school in Cerritos, like high school in Cerritos. Then went to community college there, and then I ended up transferring to USC. Senior year of SC, I started interning at Department of Veterans Affairs, Office of Inspector General, as an auditor or intern auditor. And after I graduated, they offered a full-time position, so I started working there full-time. While I was working there, since it's like for the federal government, they really encouraged the employees to do some community service, like to volunteer somewhere and things like that. So out of the list that I've seen that we were kind of like given, like AA, Alcoholics Anonymous, NA, Narcotics Anonymous, and CGA, Criminals Gangs Anonymous. Those three things kind of like came out to me. So in the beginning, I started to volunteer there, and eventually, like after several years, even became chair for some of those organizations. And even after I stopped working at the VA, I continued doing my volunteer community service at those organizations. So the only people that moved to America were just my direct family, right? The rest of my family, like my aunts and uncles, cousins, they still live in Korea. My Korean side of the family were going through some like legal issues and like family issues, and it required somebody from my direct family to keep going back and forth from the States back to Korea to do documents and things like that. I was the only one that could actually go back and forth a couple of times. But then after a couple of times, it became like financially straining, and then also like couldn't maintain the balance. So I just decided to move out here. So when I came to Korea, it was a huge culture shock for me. I grew up in Koreatown, LA. So it was like I thought I knew how to speak Korean well. I know how to order food. I know how to say goodbye. Like I know my Korean, right? That's what I thought. When I got to Korea, like 3.5 years ago, I was staying at a hotel, and then I was really hungry. So I went downstairs, and then I saw a Burger King, right? So I'm like, all right, Burger King, that's pretty safe, right? I could do this, right? So I went into Burger King, and then there's like this little, like really short Korean girl, like at the counter, but there was like a whole bunch of people behind me. So I went up to the counter, and then I just told her, like, can I get a cheese Whopper meal with some, like chicken nuggets or something? And she was like, yeah. And right when she just like said, like, what? Like that, like I started sweating. And I don't know why I started sweating. It was just like a little girl, right? And then in the monitor behind her was like a picture of a burger, but it wasn't even the one that I wanted. But I was like, oh, 저거요, like this, right? And then she turns around, but right when she turns around, the picture changes to like some shakes or something. Finally the picture changed, and then I was like, yeah, that one. And then she goes, okay. And then um, I was trying to pay, and I was giving her just cash, right? And she started asking me like, oh, do you have this kind of point? Do you have that kind of point? Do you want like 현금 영수증, and like all of these things? And I started pouring, right? Like my sweat, it just started dripping down, and I was like, 돈 있어요, 돈, right? And she was like, 네? Right? It was like the saddest thing ever, right? So I came home with the burger that I didn't even want, and then I started thinking to myself like, should I just get the flight ticket back home? Like, I don't think I could do this anymore. It was so, it was just, I mean, even like small things like that, you think that like a lot of these things, and then you come, and then like it's just like a huge shock that you don't know anything. So I was like, how am I gonna work in this kind of place? Like, if I can't even order food at an American franchise, like how can I live here? How can I make a living? Yeah, so being unable to communicate even at a basic level was definitely shocking. With that came like a lot of doubt, a lot of fear. Like I was saying before, like I come from a background where like sharing about your issues and, like having those like group kind of meetings and things like that with my volunteer service, seeking help is not a big deal, right? So I asked like a small network of my Korean friends here, do you have any references or referrals to like a counselor or somebody that I can talk to about like some of the issues I'm going through right now? And the way that they responded back to me was like truly shocking, actually. They're just like, what are you talking about? You want to be careful about asking those kind of questions here in Korea. People are going to think that you're crazy. People are going to think that you're weak. Like you're a big dude. Like, why don't you just drink some soju and forget about it? Like, let's just brush it off. With that, it kind of got the ball rolling for me, like as far as like starting a business where it, makes it easier for people to find help. When I went through this issue, I was wondering if other people in Korea were going through the same things. So initially, just to do like some kind of research, I guess, like on a ground level, what I did was I created a Facebook group called iMental Health Korea. Started to get a lot of followers, like all of a sudden, and like people sharing on the thing on the webpage on the Facebook page, and then us just sharing like different barriers and problems that we're going through about like how we couldn't find anybody to talk to, especially in English, especially about certain things or certain areas. When I found that it was not just me going through this issue. Um, I decided like, okay, like maybe if there was just a website or an app that keeps everybody anonymous and they're able to find resources and, create like better accessibility to mental health care. So the name of my company is called Kidep. The reason why we named it Kidep was because it's for Kideo, like in Korean, it means lean on me, but we shortened it to make it a little bit hipper. Our app now, it has like a lot of different features, and um, the main type of blowback that we're like that we still kind of get is that like only doctors or psychiatrists or like trained professionals, they strongly feel like they're the only ones that could recommend this type of help or that type of help or this category, right? And for somebody else to kind of just do it, they're not so receptive or receptive of that. But it's just all information. And what I never got was, why does the Ministry of Health and Welfare have this huge directory and just doesn't open it up? Just open it up and so people can just see it. But since nobody is even doing that basic level of like, open information, like we felt like we could just do it. I've been here for 3.5 years, and I'm so glad that I moved here. Actually, even with all the hardships and all the culture clash, I came to Korea and I met God again. I have a wife now. I have a 8-month-old son. I have a small company with like a handful of employees. I mean, it's just amazing. My name is Taeyang Kim, and this is my Korean American story.